Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Los Pollos Hermanos, VortiX+LucifroN+Themista versus AoE4, Sorakuma, Demon Sheep, and Siamjig. This is the second semifinals of AoE4 Pro League. We're seconds away from game number 1 starting out. Lucifron is going to be handling the French in red, Mista is going to have the Mongols in yellow, and VortiX is going to be playing with the Rus in blue. The other side, Siamjig is going to have Rus in purple, Demon Sheep with the French in green, and Sorakuma is going to have the Abbasid dynasty, so no Mongols for AoE4. Game number 1 is beginning, and on the southern part of the map, we will have VortiX's team, Los Pollos Hermanos, with VortiX in the pocket. On the left side, you will have Mista playing as the Mongols in yellow in the flank, and in the other flank position, you're going to have Lucifron playing as the French. Other side, you're going to have the French player in the pocket. You will have the Rus player, Siamjig, playing on the flank, and of course, the other Abbas flank is going to be the Abbasid player, Sorakuma. So, slight difference in the approaches of the two teams. You're going to have a French pocket as opposed to a Rus pocket over here. But of course, this could leave the French flank, Lucifron, open to a lot of aggression. If the opponent had Mongols, they could definitely go for a tower rush on that gold mine. With no Mongols available on the opposing side, you probably are happy having the French on the flank. Looks like on the left side, we already have a scuffle in between these two players. You see, Mista is popping a speed arrow, and he's going for the sheep. This is something that he does so often. He knows he can't kill the scout, so he's going to kill the carcasses or the sheep that's trailing this scout. Nice little touch over there for him. This way, he can limit the amount of sheep that Sorakuma is able to bring in. Sorakuma, with a front gold that's quite exposed to aggression, could be dangerous against Mista. Mista, for now, is opening with a pasture, and that means that he's not gonna go for a lot of aggression in Dark Age. If you open pasture, you're unlikely to go for a barracks or anything like that. Looking at the bounties real quickly, Siamjig is at 90 at this point. VortiX is playing at 115. So pretty close in the bounty department are the two players as we kick off the second minute of the game. Nice move from Mista to be able to aggro some wolves, though. I kind of like this approach, because this way the opponent's Rus player won't be able to grab it, and oh boy, that is 3 wolves aggroed even. Now, the problem here is that the Khan will automatically fire at them, which means that you can't just lure them into the Rus player's base. That would be the most ideal thing to do. Lure all 3 wolves into the base of VortiX, because if you do that, you give 75 gold for your teammate. That would be a nice little touch. Siamjig, right now, taking down some more patches of huntables as we speak. We have 205 bounty for VortiX. 170 will be the bounty count for Siamjig, so he's a tiny bit behind. Wolves are still trailing that, and oh, that's just so good. You keep the distance with your Khan between the wolves, and even though there's a risk of de-aggroing, you can still have a scout here for VortiX, and VortiX is like, thank you, just collecting 3 wolves, nice and easy here. His teammate did the hard time, or he did the hard part of the job, just grabbing all those wolves and gathering them together, and now VortiX will be able to take the 25 gold out there. Meanwhile, up north you will have the Golden Gate coming in for Siamjig right now. VortiX is at 330 bounty, and he's about to finish off the last wolf on the left side, so that pushes him to 355. Whereas for Siamjig, he's at only at 200, which is a little underwhelming. Just now grabs a wolf in the middle, but in a team game setting, you want to be at like 300, 400. By this time, Lucifron, on the other hand, is going to lose 1 scout to the town center fire of Siamjig, so that's going to hurt him a tiny bit. Mista not going super aggressive on the Dark Age part of the game plan. He's just going for feudal age pressure, most likely with early Mangodai, trying to limit the amount of carcasses that the opponent can bring in. Looks like we are going to have the House of Wisdom coming in here for Sorakuma with the economy wing. He's going for a couple of berries here. Given the fact that he's got basically no carcasses left underneath the town center, he's gonna need those berries, but it also leaves his food eco quite raidable at this time. Meanwhile, other side, you're going to have the School of Cavalry most likely coming in here. For Lucifron, in the pocket, you have the Golden Gate on the way for VortiX, and it's going to be the Deer Stones for the Mista. Other side, same approach, you're going to have the School of Cavalry for Demon Sheep. He's not mining stone, so he's going to be playing 1 town center. The other flank player, Lucifron, also is not mining stone, so he's also playing 1 town center. And even the Abbasid player, well, technically he's got a mining camp that's good enough for stone mining, but he hasn't touched the stone mine just yet, so he's going to be playing 1 town center as well. As Feudal Age begins, we're going to have professional scouts queued up by Siamjik and VortiX at the same time as well. Siamjik is up to 410 bounty now, so he managed to catch up to VortiX. VortiX is at 445, so VortiX still a tiny bit ahead. As things stand, we're going to have professional scouts and some scouts added as well here by both players. And we have a stable on the way for Mista, so he's going to open Horsemen. This is something that he does sometimes with the Mongols, because with the Horsemen, you actually have the mobility advantage over the opponent's scouts. The Knights of your team cannot catch the opponent's scouts ferrying in the air, but you can catch the scouts with some Horsemen. And once again, great teamwork by LucifroN and VortiX. LucifroN is going to lure in the Wolf to the base of VortiX, giving an additional 25 gold for VortiX here, pushing him to 475 at this point, as opposed to 415 from the Purple Rose player. Archer range is up here for Sorakuma, and we're seeing some Camel Archers hitting the field. Those are very expensive, and that's your biggest problem when it comes to using the Abbasids. Affording double range Camel Archers is super expensive. You basically need 360 food for every 35 seconds of the game. That's just a ton of food to spend. Bit of a scuffle on the right side. Siamjik wants to secure that patch of Huntables for himself, as LucifroN with the French is also looking to bring in some hunt for himself. First Night No coming in from Demon Sheep, and that could potentially discourage LucifroN from taking most of this hunt. It looks like, with the support of that Green Knight, LucifroN will be forced back by the Taiwanese team here. Knight also coming in by Demon Sheep, and this is the difference when it comes to professional scouts with French versus no professional scouts. If you go for professional scouts with the French, you won't have Knights on the battlefield, and you can see that the Knights from Demon Sheep are already doing some damage here. They managed to secure a patch of Huntables for Siamjik, and also they managed to kill one villager from LucifroN. Now you pull away that Knight and heal it up. Horsemen coming in as we speak from the Mista. Camel Archers slowly being masked by Sorakuma, but he's sending them forward all the way around. He's about to hit the gold mine of the French player most likely, and that's going to be a massive annoyance for the French, dealing with those Camel Archers raiding your gold income. Demon Sheep, already with a second stable up, popping out Knights like there is no tomorrow. And you see LucifroN is still adding some scouts, so he still wants to work with professional scouts, and if he doesn't lose a lot of eco, it's going to pay off. But if he's going to suffer a lot of damage here from these Knights and Camel Archers, that professional scouts might be the mistake that causes a lot of issues, because it's a trade-off. You're going to have a way better food eco with professional scouts of the French, but of course you sacrifice a lot of early Knights, and if you sacrifice those Knights, that means that your opponent will be able to overrun your economy. Chivalry is already in for Demon Sheep. He pulled away one weak Knight, and now he's bringing in the Camel Archers as well, with his teammate Sorakuma arriving on the battlefield. LucifroN is off from gold, and our red player could be in serious trouble here. On the left side though, Horsemen are moving in, supported by some Mangadai. Some Archers are out for Sorakuma. He knows he can't make more Camel Archers, so he's going to switch into Foot Archers. The first few Camel Archers were just made so he can harass this gold mine, and you see, LucifroN, unable to access gold right now, he could be in trouble. Siamjik on the way to Castle Age, he's going up with the High Trade House. This is something that we see a lot from him playing as the Rus. He's one of those players that doesn't believe in the strength of the Abbey of the Trinity, and if he's able to get to Castle Age fast and still secure like 3-4 relics, that's the good decision. Of course, if he misses out on the relics, that's a big disaster, because on the other side, you already have Castle Age for VortiX, so he's bringing in the Warrior Monks for the relics. Defensive tower coming up here for LucifroN. He's gonna have enough Knights to secure him some ground and get this building up, although a couple of villagers might once again go down. That's another villager going down. A second one could bite the dust, and this tower has to go up, but it comes at a price. 2 more villagers go down from LucifroN. Meanwhile, on the north, you will have some Horsemen and some Horse Archers coming in as well from Mista, and that's going to force Demon Sheep off from his gold mine as well. Missed a bit of a miss micro there with some of those Horsemen. Will lose one to the Town Center fire over here, but now Demon Sheep will have to address this issue just as much as LucifroN has to address the gold mining issue out here. You already have the first Warrior Monk out for VortiX, and now you see Siamjik. The reason why he's going up is because this way he's gonna have 106 gold trickled forever with that landmark, and he's gonna have deer forever as well, so his food eco is gonna be better. The trade-off is that you have to make a monastery to make warrior monks, and on the monastery the warrior monks are also more expensive, so you'll be much slower when it comes to gathering the relics, and that could be a serious deficit compared to VortiX, who's already bringing in relics, I think. Knights now moving up here for Lucifron, trying to chase down all of those camel archers. Knights coming back from Demon Sheep. They could get a nice charge in, and many of those knights from our red player, Lucifron, is heavily damaged. So you gotta be careful not to lose those numbers. So far, VortiX is stuck inside his base. These yellow horsemen are still harassing the base of Demon Sheep. He's dispatched some knights to deal with them. But Mista is doing a great job, and this is what I was referring to. This is that playstyle of VortiX's team, where Mista just does his own thing and he delays multiple players, and then VortiX and Lucifron will just snowball the game on the other side. So Mista is basically acting alone, and in order to be able to successfully do this, you need an exceptional player, because if Mista masses up, then suddenly VortiX and Lucifron will be 2 versus 3. So this is a risky play and a risky style of gameplay, but if Mista doesn't mess it up, it's extremely powerful, because you see, right now, he's forcing Sorakuma to stay at home, he's forcing Demon Sheep to keep some forces back at home, and that allows LucifroN and VortiX to have the advantage on the battlefield. Down south, you have the step redoubt coming in here. That's going to be delayed a tiny bit by some of those knights and camel archers arriving though, and this is a bit of a problem now for Mista. His town center is about to get full with villagers, and that's gonna be quite a few casualties on his side, especially if those lumberjacks are targeted. The knights could get quite a lot of value for themselves. Horsemen will be taken down as well, and indeed knights now jump on the lumberjacks of Mista. This could be a disaster, because this is the first time that we're going to have him losing considerable villager numbers. Love the micro though, look at that. He pops out on one side, jumps in on the other, still. With the Yam Speed network, it looks like he's able to save all those villagers. Just look at this. Just look at that. That is a spectacular performance by Mista. He's up against like 4 knights here, but he barely lost villagers after he started microing them. That's the Yam Speed network for you. Villagers running at 1.29 tiles per second. Town center is slowly cleaning up the knights, and I think after those initial villagers were lost by Mista, once again, he pops out on one side, jumps in on the other. Given the circumstances, this defense was spectacular, and now he's taking down all those knights. Ultimately, he did lose some villagers. In fact, his eco probably isn't looking super spectacular. He's at 31 villagers, but given the circumstances, that was a nice fight. On the left side, the knights are moving in, and they're fighting against archers. Archers will struggle so badly against this one, and despite the fact that Sorakuma is up in Castle Age, he couldn't really use that mangle up until now. Crossbows hit the field though, and with those, the knights will be repelled. There's action all over the place. On the north, we'll have horse archers moving up from both the VortiX and Siamjik. Siamjik currently is sitting at 2 relics. VortiX is sitting at 3, and I think he's bringing in some more. So VortiX is gonna have the relic advantage, but now the Abbasids are crawling forward, and they are about to hit the base of Mista. Once again, Mista now starting to lose considerable villager numbers, so it's getting concerning for him. And especially if those knights get to that gold mine, things could get a lot uglier. You see, villagers will be able to jump into the tower, but some of them won't make it. And if those knights start to pursue, that could be 6 dead villagers from Mista. Now he's under a lot of pressure. Horse archers coming in here to try and put some damage on Sorakuma. But behind this, he already has mangonels and archers crawling up towards Mista's base. Mista, once again, trying to minimize the damage over here with the Yam Speed network of his towers running away with the vills. Now he's got some lancers in, so he will be able to repel this attack, but he lost a lot of vills, and now the archers are crawling closer and closer to his base, and on the right side, a warrior monk from VortiX will be intercepted by those horse archers. Behind this one though, you have red knights and blue horse archers moving into the base of Sorakuma, so as much as Mista has been bashed in the face by all of those knights, now there is going to be a lot of losses here by Sorakuma, and he doesn't have the Yam Speed network to run away from this one. Some more knights are coming in. I love that VortiX and LucifroN are coming in here for the kill. They know exactly that they will lose some units, but they could do so much damage here to Sorakuma that it will be very difficult to come back from. Sorakuma is down to 29 villagers as compared to the Mista, who is at 32, so pretty much all the damage that Mista suffered from has been compensated for. However, now you see that Siamjik spots that this gold mine could still be raidable, and I also saw some horse archers somewhere across the map. Looks like, however, we have a 3v1 over here, and this is just a beautiful combination of the forces for VortiX's team, surrounding all of Sorakuma's forces, and that's a slaughter. That's an absolute slaughter over there. The horse archers, the knights, and the lancers, supported by the horsemen, move in. All of the forces here, including the mangonel, including the archers, got cleaned up, and now you kind of feel like Sorakuma is on the back foot because he just lost everything. This mangonel is also just not being built. The knights could get quite a lot of damage done. And I feel like Sorakuma's team is just falling behind so rapidly here. It's full foot on the gas pedal right now for Mista's team, whereas for Sorakuma's team, maybe having that group of units caught off guard could be a disaster, because right now there is just no forces on the battlefield for Sorakuma, and you see the Horse Archers and the Knights moving in. Numbers are way better for VortiX, and also Lucifron has more Knights on the battlefield right now compared to Demon Sheep. Sorakuma is just taking too much damage at this point. Mista still at 35 villagers, but Sorakuma is probably down to 15 at this point. It's just a massive slaughter at this point, and you see VortiX has way better Horse Archer numbers as well. If we compare the resource income per minute as we take a look at this fight, VortiX probably has more relics, we'll have to check that. But of course, right now we're looking at all the fighting that's going down. AoE4 is barely able to hold this side. And as I said, behind this one, you already see a constant trickle of Knights coming in for Lucifron. VortiX is sitting on 4 relics. Siamjik is sitting on 4 as well, so the relic numbers don't differ that much. It probably comes down to the fact that the Abbasids aren't really able to contribute much to this battle right now. Now it is just a massive pushback here by VortiX's forces into the base of Sorakuma, and Sorakuma can't even leave the safety of his town center anymore. He is struggling to rebuild his army, and you see VortiX's team is now concentrating all of their efforts towards the base of Sorakuma. They know exactly that they could pretty much knock one player out here. No siege for them, but they can just destroy the entire economy of Sorakuma and just be done with it. Sorakuma is down to 23 villagers. Of course, he's got cheap villagers, but it doesn't mean that it's easy for him to replenish because he only has one town center to work with. At this point, Sorakuma is pretty much out of this game for the next 10-15 minutes. And I think this is the moment for VortiX's team to switch targets, because Sorakuma is dead now. And you shouldn't go for an overkill here. You spend too much time in the base of Sorakuma, that might give a chance for Demon Sheep and Siamjik to just boom away. So that's something that you have to be careful of. VortiX's team now making the right decision, I believe, moving up and targeting a different player. They know exactly Sorakuma can't help, so it's a 3 versus 2 right now. And with the Horse Archers moving in, there is little forces from Demon Sheep that can hold this off. To be precise, I see 2 Knights. 2 stables are trying to pop out some more, but those 2 Knights will be just very far from being enough to fight this off. Knight numbers are better for Lucifron, Horse Archer numbers are better as well, and the army advantage is just showing on the battlefield so much. Mista doesn't even have to add army anymore, because at this point, VortiX and Lucifron are doing the work by themselves. And once again, we have seen something similar to what we have seen in the previous round from Mista's team. Mista delaying 2 players with those horsemen, the lancers, the raids, also absorbing a lot of damage, and then just letting the Spanish brothers, Lucifron and VortiX, snowball the game. Nice raid here by the Mista, gets a couple of villagers, and more importantly forces Demon Sheep to pursue. And while he's pursuing, no wonder if you're going to see these Knights and the Horse Archers moving into the base of Demon Sheep. If we look at the Horse Archer numbers real quickly, VortiX is sitting at 41, and for Siamjik it is 23, so almost double the numbers. And now you see the Horse Archers from VortiX moving into the base of Siamjik. He's making a run for that tower, but not all villagers will fit in anyways. That's gonna be a lot of casualties as well. Sorakuma and his team are heavily on the back foot, and I think we can soon say that game number 1 is in the hands of Los Pollos Hermanos. They're looking extremely strong right now. Another raid coming in, and Siamjik is just falling apart in terms of population as well. I think at this point, their chances of coming back into this one are almost non-existent. You can see a straight blue line across the map that is just streaming in reinforcements towards the base of Demon Sheep. And you see, the moment Siamjik's forces leave the base of Demon Sheep, Mista comes back. He doesn't have a lot of knights here, but he's getting the most out of them. Just 6 units. But the moment the opponent leaves, he's coming back and he's killing dozens of villagers. These Lancers are doing just as much work as all of these Horse Archers do. Now you see, the Knight Meat Shield here for Lucifron should be able to absorb a lot of arrow fire, allowing VortiX to finish off the opponent's Horse Archers. Lucifron is also in Castle Age, so he's gonna have veteran Royal Knights coming in a matter of seconds. But this is not something that Kaio Fallen is going to wait for. Kaio all are definitely fallen in game number 1, because we have Los Pollos Hermanos taking game number 1 in a very decisive fashion. absolute beauty of a gameplay from them. If we look at the KDs, that has to be spectacular indeed. VortiX with 122 over 64, Mista with 67 over 39, and LucifroN 59 over 45. Not necessarily spectacular, but he didn't need to do anything special. He was the one taking a lot of damage at the beginning, and then his two teammates were just able to snowball the game. You see, there was basically no buildings raised over here. Mista killed just one. It was all about running into that eco and killing the villagers, and this is where we have to highlight this drop. This drop was an absolute disaster for Sorakuma. He had a good group of archers and crossbows that could have helped in a fight if his teammates was nearby. But they weren't. He moved out alone, teammates weren't there, he got his forces triple teamed, and all of those forces went down. He was never able to recover military-wise, and shortly after, you see this is at like 40 minutes, shortly after, his eco starts falling apart as well because he was getting raided really heavily. He didn't have forces to defend himself anymore, and then his eco just falls apart. You basically have one player out of the game, and then it just snowballs to the other side of the map. Demon Sheep and Siamjik having their eco collapse, and game number 1 falls into the hands of VortiX's team. 5 relics for VortiX, 4 for Siamjik. So despite the fact that Siamjik aged up with the Hydrate House instead of the Abbey of Eternity, he was able to gather quite a lot of relics, so that's exceptional. But of course, VortiX having the best villager count in the game, Sorakuma capping out at 49. Mista also capped out at 55, but of course, he's got the step readout working for him, so this actually is worth more than 55. Game number 1. Very decisive win for Los Pollos Hermanos. Now we'll have to see what Demon Sheep's team think about. Demon Sheep's team will go for Danube River. Oh boy, civilizations are already in as well. We have the Delhi Sultanate on both sides, Holy Roman Empire on both sides, but we have a bit of a surprise over here. Mongols for AoE4, and Chinese for VortiX's team. Chinese is not a big surprise. Mongols, we'll have to see what's the game plan with that, because there are definitely some ideas for Mongols over here on this map. On the other hand, you also have to consider that you are not using Chinese in game number 2 here, which could mean that you have no Fire Lancers if this game goes long. We'll take a short break as the players are setting up game number 2. Stay tuned, because Los Pollos Hermanos versus AoE4 is going to continue in a matter of minutes. Welcome back everyone to AoE4 Pro League. Los Pollos Hermanos moving into the home map of Kaio. Championship and Siamjik decided to go for Danube River. Before this set, I would have thought that they would have gone for the Hillendale map if they had an option to choose. Turns out that they like Danube River a little bit more. I think on Hillendale, Kaio was extremely powerful. There was a game where they defeated Hera, Kaposh, and Marine Lord with a fast Wonder play, if I remember correctly. And in general, I really felt like Hillendale is one of those maps where Kaio could be extremely difficult to beat. So it's a bit of a surprise for me that they went for Danube River. As you see the countdown going on the screen, we're 3 minutes away from game number 2. LucifroN with the Chinese, he's going to be in yellow. Mista is going to handle the Delhi in blue. And VortiX is going to be playing as the Holy Roman Empire in red. Meanwhile, on the other side, you're going to have Siamjik playing as the Mongols in purple. He's sort of the wildcard player. He's the one that has to make things happen with the Mongols, put up some early aggression, because the biggest question mark right now is how you're going to use your Mongols on this map. You pretty much sacrifice your late game Chinese for the Mongols here, so that Mongols has to work out really effectively. You could see some scouts coming in trying to burn down the docks of the opponent. You could see some towers coming in, but there are a lot of options here for Mongols. It comes down to how you approach this game for Siamjik. Demon Sheep is going to have the Delhi, and Sorakuma is going to have the Holy Roman Empire. As things stand, we have 2 minutes left to go. Very important game here for Kaio Fallen, because losing this game would push them into a match point position for the opponent. And of course, you never want to be in a position where your opponent already has a match point, because in this best of 5, the winner gets into the grand finals. So far, Los Pollos Hermanos is looking very, very confident, very strong. On the other hand, I feel like on Kaio Fallen's side, there was just one crucial mistake/issue that caused a lot of disastrous problems in the previous game. Having that army caught off guard and slaughtered was a massive disaster, and ultimately, if that didn't happen, that could have been a completely different game. So they are playing a slower paced map, a map where you could definitely go for a late game scenario. So I feel like they just need to reset themselves mentally. Say, okay, game number 1 was a bit of a train wreck. Let's go into game number 2 with clear heads, because they definitely have the skill set to turn this around, especially on Danube River, but this is going to be a crucial game for them. If they lose here, it's going to be very difficult to steer this back under control, especially because once you get to game number 3, we could once again have an open map, and then boom, open map, I think, is something that favors VortiX's team. So this is almost a must-win here for Kaio Fallen, falling behind 2-0, and then potentially having to play an open map in game 3 could be a disaster. With the countdown coming to an end, we are ready to jump into game number 2. Los Pollos Hermanos, VortiX, Mista, and LucifroN. A combination of insane individual talent versus Kaio Fallen, Demon Sheep, Siamjik, and Sorakuma. They are the underdogs over here by a massive margin, but they were underdogs in multiple sets they played, and they came out victorious, especially being able to beat Kaposh, Marine Lord, and Hera, a team that, by the way, won 3-0 in a show match versus VortiX's team with the same settings, was a massive accomplishment from Kaio Fallen. So after beating Hera's team, it really seemed like these guys could be an extremely powerful force to be reckoned with. So far in game number 1, VortiX's team came out on top with a quite decisive win. Let's see what they can do in game number 2. Colors will be the same as in game number 1. On the left, we'll have Mista playing as the blue in the Delhi. To the left of him is going to have LucifroN playing as the yellow Chinese, and up north you're going to have VortiX playing as the red Holy Roman Empire, whereas on the other side you're going to have the town center for Sorakuma with the Holy Roman Empire and teal. In the pocket you're going to have Siamjik playing as the purple Mongols, and last but not least you're going to have Demon Sheep playing as a Delhi flank here. So the main difference in the approaches is that you are going to have your Chinese player on the far left side for Mista's team, whereas you have the Delhi player for Demon Sheep's team. Usually you want your deli player to be out here, because as your enemy is trying to push you from this side, you're going to have your fishing ships ready to fire back at him. So having your deli as your flank often is probably the best solution. Having the Chinese a little exposed over here is a bit of a question mark to me. We'll have to see what Lucifron has on his mind with this. He's opening up with a mill, he's supervising that for the time being, so it's possible we're not going to see any kind of fishing eco from him. Up north, you have a mining camp coming in for VortiX. He's playing the Holy Roman Empire, and there is a chance that he isn't gonna go any fishing either, because he's got a good food eco on land. And for the Mista, we're seeing a dock coming up from him. Love the placement right on those shallows. This already forms a bit of a natural wall over here, and the big thing with this is that any moment in the future, when enemies want to cross, having a dock right next to the crossing could be a massive, massive advantage, because you could just pop out the demolition ship and sink the entire opponent's navy, or in case of units crossing, the army. Meanwhile, on the other side, you do have a dock coming in the pocket for Sorakuma in teal. Dock is also up for our green player, Demon Sheep. He's gonna have his villager potentially caught off guard by the scout of Lucifron, and the... What? 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 I'm not even going to pretend that I understand the strategy over here, but ladies and gentlemen, that is a transport ship. That is a transport ship, and the only thing I can think about is potentially transporting some stuff in this corner, making up a tiny proxy base, and then just harassing them from there. No idea why the transport is still there. There's actually some spearmen pushing up, by the way, by Siamjik. Maybe they made a transport because they're afraid that this one is walled, or maybe they're afraid that the fishing ships will just pick off the spearmen, but the transport is a bit of a question mark to me right now. Oh boy. Oh boy. Not sure what to think about this just yet. It could be great. Now that the walls are coming up, it could be a great idea. It is a Mongol tower rush potentially here, and honestly, if this is intentional, I can see what they are thinking about. Because it's still faster to have the spearmen inside the transport to the other side, than to walk all the way around. Although it would have been more efficient to just keep the transport ship nearby, and the spearmen jump in, like, let's say, here, and then sail all the way up. Spearmen will be transported to the other side. Docks being built right now by Lucifron. This will be spotted by Siamjik, and he's coming in with his spears. Fishing ships are nearby for Mista, though, so he should be able to repel that aggression. This is the problem that you're facing when you're trying to attack Delhi docks this fast. The Delhi fishing ships will just be dispatched to try and help out, and you see, Lucifron should not be losing that dock out there. That transport ship, so far, not really serving its investment. Spearman now coming forward. That's gonna cause some problems here for Mista. He's gonna have his gold miners harassed, could potentially cause issues for Lucifron here as well. But it's not something that you have to be really concerned about. It's only 3 spearmen, so not the end of the world. The transport ship is still there, and we're seeing more spears coming in. So Siamjik is committed, but only spearmen makes me wonder how much damage he can do here. If he can slow down 1 or 2 players, you could still justify the investment. Looks like he's just coming back to try and burn down the dog, but that's not going to be successful. Vista's fishing ships are so close that they can just prevent those spearmen from killing the dog out here. I think it's a better target to try and go for the gold mines, potentially stone mines. If you can harass stone miners, that could be interesting. And Mista's also chopping these trees. If those spearmen could get there, that could be an absolute beauty for Siamjik. And you see, 3 spearmen harassing the gold miners, that could set Mista back quite a bit. And if you set a player like Mista back, potentially set another player back, like Lucifron, being able to harass his resource income, that could slow down 2 players, and then your own players can outboom them and snowball the game in the late game. That's a possibility. We'll have to see how Mista's team reacts to this one. So far, the spearmen are burning down that mining camp, that's for sure. There are no towers from our Mongol player, just spearmen, all being ferried across by that transport ship. As things stand, the mining camp is on fire, and as I said, the bigger thing for Siamjik would be finding those lumberjacks. He didn't see them, but he sees the lumber camp here, so he might be thinking, oh yeah, my opponent is chopping wood there, but oh, Demon Sheep is finding it, and this could be an absolute jackpot. You see that now, Mista's gonna have to abandon that wood line. He's got another one over here, of course, to work with, but that could be an exposed lumber camp that you can burn down with the Mongols. Spearmen are going to be rallied here by Lucifron, of course. Being able to supervise the barracks will help a lot, catching up in the Spearman department. So he's gonna be able to repel this one. But still, the key thing here for Siamjik is that he was able to force this Chinese player to go for a barracks, and I love this move from Mista. He preemptively deleted the lumber camp before taking any damage to make sure that his opponent can't burn it down. In comes a Musk here for Mista. He aged up with a Dome of Faith. Spearman still around, but not really doing that much right now. I'm unsure if this is enough damage done by the Mongols here, because to me, it really felt like the game plan was built on the fact that the Mongols will be super aggressive here, burning down docks and whatnot, but that never really materialized. We have two players with Fishing Eco on the side of Sorakuma, and we also have two players with Fishing Eco, namely Lucifron and the Mista on their side. So, as things stand, we have only one Holy Roman Empire player fishing, and that is going to be Sorakuma. That could help a tiny bit getting to Imperial Age, and having a slight advantage with the Pass of Swabia. Ragnitz Cathedral on the way right now for VortiX, as those spearmen from Lucifron are trailing the ones from Siamjik. One thing that you can accomplish with those spears, though, is limit the movement of VortiX's prelate. And that's not something to be overlooked, because limiting the movement of that prelate is going to mean that you delay the relics. You delay the relics, you will be able to slow down the Imperial Age timing of VortiX as well. If you slow down the Imperial Age, there's going to be a massive difference in villagers in between your own Holy Roman Empire player and the opponent's one. It looks like we also got some spearmen moving in from Siamjik. Once again, the transport pops out 4 more. So Mista's going to have to dispatch some of his fishing ships to deal with this one. Spearman will now trade off on the right side. Hardened Spearman in for both. Khan, of course, helps quite a bit here. He did not pop a buff arrow in the last couple of seconds. He's still recharging those. Now he could try an attack speed arrow out there. And honestly, if Siamjik intercepts those prelates, that could be massive. He missed out on the prelate. Oh boy. That's a disaster. If he finds those 2 prelates, that would have been jackpot, because he would have delayed those relics so much. Killing 2 prelates is just an absolute thing of beauty here for those spears, and they seem to have missed out on them. So, opportunity lost. Or is it? There is one spearman still here that's harassing those prelates. At least Siamjik now knows that the prelates are trying to move out that way, and so far, all the relics have been denied from VortiX. Spearmen are still out here for Siamjik, and really, this is textbook harassment gameplay here. The Mongol player is just doing so much damage to everybody, forcing Mista to pull his fishing ships to combat spearmen, forcing VortiX to slow down his relic gathering process, forcing the Chinese player to add the barracks. You see, at this point, Lucifron has an Imperial Academy, and that's it. On the other side, of course, there is no Chinese player, but behind this, you already have a Holy Roman Empire player with the Ragnitz Cathedral up, and I think relics are already coming in here for Sorakuma. So Sorakuma has a head start over the other HRE player. I really like how Siamjik is using this group of spearmen to harass the opponent, because he's slowing down multiple players, and the game plan is clear. You slow down these players, and then your other 2 teammates will snowball the game. The biggest question to me is how much the Delhi of your team can snowball a game, because that's a big question mark, I believe. Love the move of Mista pulling up the fishing ships, killing the spearman, letting that prelate survive, or will he survive? The Khan was hiding in the shadows, and it's gonna pick off that prelate. Of course, that relic will fall into the hands of Lucifron ultimately, but it's going to be slowed down. Khan is gonna get poked down by spearman, but the amount of damage that's being done here by Siamjik is exceptional. And now you see some combat ships coming in as well. Siamjik with some light junks and also some dows from Demon Sheep. They are going for the fishing eco now. Some junks are out for VortiX, but at this point, the biggest thing is that the Chinese player isn't able to boom up with Song Dynasty. They have to just invest so much into those junks. Spearman now moving up, and should be finally a secure base for Lucifron, VortiX, and the Mista. Imperial Age on the way for VortiX. He's going to age up at 10 minutes time. Seems like there had to be some sling, because 10 minutes is a really, really good Imperial Age timing here for VortiX, given the circumstances that he didn't have fishing eco, and his eco was pushed pretty hard. Another dock attempted here by Siamjik. Now we have Castle Age for Sorakuma, and he's getting some docks up. Hawks could be a thing, demolition ships could be a thing, and right now demolition ships will probably work a lot better because there are just so many clustered up fishing ships. Mista knows that trouble is coming his way, trying to kite away with some of his fishing ships. First demolition ship will pop, sinking free. Doc's now coming up for VortiX. He knows that he's gonna have to fight this one at this point. He's the one in Castle Age now, Imperial. He's gonna need to make either some Carracks or some demolition ships. Barracks is still being harassed here from Mista by the Spearman. Simjic is just doing so much damage here with those Spearmen, and that's helping his teammates push up the water so effectively. Looks like we're going to have explosives coming in here for Sorakuma. He's up to Imperial. Crucial technology for your demolition ships, and explosives is going to be queued up immediately by VortiX. The easier thing for VortiX here is that he's going to be able to rebuild his docks, whereas it's going to be a lot more difficult for Sorakuma to keep building docks on the opponent's side of the river. And now Demon Ship is coming for the Sacred Site. They're stonewalling. Well, for now it's just Palisade, but it could be stone walls. They're walling off the left side. They already have one Sacred Site, and the second one is being captured, so AoE4 will pop that Sacred Site victory soon. Spearmen are being sent out to the right side by LucifroN to try and take down those docks. Demolition Ship is about to pop out, though. You could sink all of those Spearmen with it. The Villager actually gets away. Demolition Ship moving north, gets killed by the Daos over here. Now Sacred Sites are triggered by Sorakuma's team, so 11:50 is the time. In 10 minutes, Sorakuma's team would win with those Sacred Sites. So 21:50 is the time to look at. Demolition ships are about to pop out over here for Sorakuma as his docks are being burned down on the left side. You do have some fighting between light junks and standard junks. Demolition ship moving in here for VortiX as well. Pops the demo, sets both of those docks on fire. This dock, however, will let one more demolition ship out, sinking all of those spearmen and the Dao as well. Ultimately, it is going to be a dock cleanup, though, so VortiX's team has to be happy with this. Men-at-Arms, though, from Demon Sheep arriving on the battlefield. Where did those guys come from? There are some Men-at-Arms over here from Demon Sheep, and you wouldn't expect them to be here. I don't see any forward buildings. They're marching through the middle, apparently. VortiX's team was so distracted that they just let a couple of Men-at-Arms march through, and now you see the Men-at-Arms starting to make stonewall towers out there to deny the fishing eco. On the left side, you have a scout being sent in by Mista to neutralize the Sacred Site, so Sacred Site victory is just gonna be a distant dream now for Demon Sheep's team. As things stand, everybody is either in Castle or Imperial Age. The two HRE players are right now in Imp. Tower coming in for Demon Sheep to try and deny that fishing. On the right side, you're going to have another dock attempted by Sorakuma, but you have Daos or denying that. Men-at-Arms, though, still doing work here for Demon Sheep. And as things stand, if you look at the resource income per minute, that should be way better for AoE4. They have not been harassed for a long time. Simjic now getting the War Junk in. Demolition ships will pop, damaging the War Junk. Second demolition ship will also pop. Towers all go down. The War Junk is also heavily damaged, so retreat is imminent. There's going to be a light junk coming in. He's going to try to pick off that demolition ship. Demo is going to pop and sink both of those combat vessels. And with that, LucifroN can start pushing up. There is another transport ship by Simjic, so this was a deliberate effort to play with transports. It's not just a misclick by Demon Sheep. At the beginning, some may have thought that it was a misclick by Demon Sheep to play with transports, but that probably is wrong, because there's another transport as well by Simjic. On the right side, docks are going to be denied, though, and as things stand, VortiX's team are slowly pushing forward on the river. Demolition ships will trade off against each other. Poor transport ship will barely survive that engagement. Another demo coming in for VortiX. He isn't even caring about that transport anymore, neither about the dog that's on fire. You just go all the way south here, and Sorakuma's team are in full retreat at this point on the river. Demolition ship will pop, sinking all of the fishing eco. This villager is going to have the worst day of his life, and indeed, it goes down to the demolition ship. And you just see that Sorakuma is trying to rebuild his dogs, but those are getting destroyed faster than he can rebuild them. There's a War Junk here for Simjic that's taking down quite a lot of junks from LucifroN. You could pop one demo here for VortiX to sink it. Indeed, one of them will pop. And with that, the War Junk is down. On the right side, the dock was almost completed, but the Dao is going to prevent that one from happening. Bows are almost up, though, on the left with the Spearman. So you could suddenly start converting that Sacred Site once again if you are AoE4. Up north, you do have some Lancers moving in here from Simjic, though those transport ship managed to get some units out there, and the Imperial Pass is just now coming in for LucifroN. He's getting ready for Fire Lancers. He has been on 3 town centers, we haven't talked about that just yet, but with the Imperial Palace going up, Fire Lancers are about to hit the field here. There's a Carrack popping out from VortiX, and Carracks are actually pretty decent in this scenario because they're able to take down buildings, and Carracks also do quite well against demolition ships as long as they can keep the distance. Demos will trade off on this side. This is a low HP demo for VortiX, so he could have popped that. Wanted to. Instead, he's going for the docks here. That's gonna be a lot of dead villagers by those nuclear torpedoes. Oh my goodness. So many dead villas out there. Looks like we see some more cavalry coming in here from Siamjik. He's got 3 forward stables that are constantly trickling in lancers to the eco of Lucifron. Lucifron is going to respond with his own lancers though, and he should have no trouble cleaning that one up in the near future. Some granaries coming in from Lucifron, so he's setting up his food eco at the back of his base. He still has a lot of fishing eco going on as well. Some raids are still going on by Siamjik, but slowly but surely I think Lucifron's team is stabilizing. Down south, we still have some docks up here for Sorakuma, so there's going to be no more pushes coming in here from VortiX. In fact, Sorakuma is now coming in with his own demos. Stone walls being made here by Demon Sheep, trying to cut off the influx of those demolition ships, although demos will have a easy time blasting through those walls. Looks like it's going to be an even trade of demos over here. Both sides will trigger their own demolition ships, but oh boy, the range on those demos is just hilarious. Oh boy. Demolition ships now knocking through all of those walls, so all the effort here from Demon Ship to prevent the crossing there is gonna be for nothing. On the left side, you got some junks here that could potentially even pick off this villager here if they can reach it. And now, Lancers and Fire Lancers together from Lucifron, blasting their way through these walls and getting to the forward stables of their opponents. Down south, demolition ships still just trading off against each other, nice and casual. VortiX will pop 1 demo over here, will sink 2 with that. That's a nice little trade over there for him. And once again, Demon Ship is neutralizing the Sacred Site. Men-at-Arms are coming in from Mista though, as he's trying to prevent that wall from being constructed. Men-at-Arms will trade off against each other between the 2 Delhi players as we speak. On the left side, Lancers or Siamjik still holding that position. And we do have both Sacred Sites under the control of Kaio Fallen once again, for a brief moment at least, because now Mista's Men-at-Arms are about to kill that Scholar, so they won't be able to keep that Sacred Site for long. Down at the bottom, demolition ships still continue incursions into each other's naval space, but ultimately, now it's just everybody trickling in demos and canceling each other's demolition ships. This dock here is still not doing much. And we have some stone walls once again crawling up for Demon Sheep, coming in with a couple of towers on them, potentially. On the left side, still some Lancers from Siamjik getting some raiding damage done. But the most important thing right now, I think, for VortiX's team is that the Fire Lancers are increasing in numbers. And that's not something that their opponents will have a good answer to at the beginning. Meanwhile, on the other side, this Mongol player for Siamjik, as I said, the Mongols have a lot of early damage potential, but if they can't really use that, then suddenly they will become a somewhat underwhelming civilization in a 3v3 setting in these slower-paced, more grindy maps. They obviously have some tools in late game as well, but you gotta wonder if picking Chinese here could have been a slightly better option. Got some elephants rolling in for Mista already. Men-at-Arms burning down the towers as we have some elite knights appearing on the battlefield by Sorakuma. He's going to clean up the Fire Lancers for the time being, but crossing this river is gonna be next to impossible. Just look at the attack notifications going all over the place. Those Lancers from Siamjik are still pinning Lucifron inside his base. That's the most important thing. Lucifron isn't able to move out, and as long as those knights keep trickling in, there's a chance technically for Sorakuma to arrive on the battlefield with a bunch of knights. But crossing this river is gonna be impossible, and there's a demo. There's a demo hiding behind that Carrack. It's hard to spot. It gets triggered. It only kills 2 knights though, so they couldn't bait Sorakuma close enough to the water to kill all of those. Lancers once again coming in from Siamjik, still doing some work at the back, delaying the opponents. But the delay only works if you're actually securing those sacred sites, out of which only one is controlled right now by Kaio Fallen. Moving down south is going to be Lucifron once again with another batch of Fire Lancers and Lancers. Those will just trade off against the ones of Siamjik. And on the right side, towers are still up. Those will harass the fishing eco of Themista quite a bit over here. You see Demon Sheep is just crawling up with those stone walls. This is the biggest thing right now for Kaio Fallen. They have the left side walled off, they have this sacred site, and in the middle, they are the ones having the advantage, and with those towers slowly crawling up, they will have a lot of firepower on the battlefield. Of course, Carracks will easily destroy those, so it's not like it's a big challenge for VortiX to take those down, but the map control advantage right now is on the side of Kaio or Fallen. Elephants now crossing the river over here, and you see Mista's going to sacrifice some of his forces to get those stone walls up, but I think you should probably just let those units pass, because look at the forces of VortiX over here. Sacred sites are now under the control of Demon Sheep's team once again. Demolition ships moving to the left side, and you're also going to see a ton of men-at-arms hit the field here from VortiX soon with the 200 weapons upgrade as well. On the left, Fire Lancers and Lancers combined move up to try and take down these stables. Mista just now reaching Imperial Age. Demolition ships popping out over here, trying to get some kills on the shoreline. Demolition ships will trade as well over here as some more demos hit the field. Towers are up on this side. There is just action non-stop all over the place. Those Stonewall towers are doing work on the fishing eco. You got some raiding going on in the base of Lucifron. Lucifron, though, he's able to clean up all of those stables, and now he's pushing up with Fire Lancers and Lancers. And with those stone walls up, though, it's gonna be impossible to push any further in there, so there is not really a lot of benefit getting in here. Obviously, this is not something that Lucifron knows just yet. Bows are just now being finished out there. In the middle, forces of VortiX are now pushing up. Two sacred sites are under control of Kaio Fallen, so currently we have a sacred site countdown. Started around 21 minutes time, so we still have like 9 minutes of it. Demolition ships coming in here from Sorakuma, though. We're seeing some Carracks hit the field as well, and as you see, those Lancers and Fire Lancers will bump into Voz over here with no chance of getting through, and you really don't want to go this way. If Lucifron just right-click these units all the way around, they are actually going to pathfind their way through the shallows, and he almost ran into a demolition ship there. That would have been an absolute disaster with all of those forces. Bombards are now out for VortiX, taking down those towers. On the left side, Carracks will meet with demolition ships, and they will exchange some cannon fire over here. Demolition ship moving up as well from Sorakuma to try and help out. Slowly but surely, Sorakuma is crawling up the river. The Karak of VortiX will go down, but there is demolition ship coming in here to finish off this heavily damaged Karak from Sorakuma. Demolition ships coming in as well. These will trade off against each other. In the middle, we still have a very slow push coming in from VortiX's team. They're going to trade off against the men-at-arms of Demon Sheep, and those are elite men-at-arms from VortiX with maces, so they will just massacre the men-at-arms of the Deadly Sultanate. They're getting closer and closer to neutralizing that sacred site in the middle. Karak is going to set up, and you see, this is why the Karak is probably the best unit over here. Being able to have cannon fire on the field that can snipe down the demos is massive. And you see, these Karaks are just able to snipe down those demos from a great distance. That's exactly what you're seeing over here. The problem is that you have limited amount of firepower here, so once you take down one, the second one is gonna come in and sink that otherwise very expensive Karak. And it looks like Lucifron also neutralized the sacred site. Wars were made by Demon Sheep to prevent that, but it was just a little too late. So now, once again, sacred site countdown halted, but the Knight push from Sorakuma, he broke through on the left side, and now the Knights are inside the eco of Lucifron. And that is just a ton of villagers dead from our yellow player. Lucifron is at 103 villagers still, and we have some spearmen coming in. But that Knight push on the left side by Sorakuma's forces is immensely helpful at this point for Kaio Fallen. They still have the map control advantage, as you see demolition ships are trickling in everywhere. Just attack notifications going off every single position on the map. A non-stop flood of demolition ships trading off against each other as Mist is trying to revolt this to prevent any kind of additional cavalry units from moving in. Looks like most of the Eel Lancers will be cleaned up as we speak. Demolition ships from Lucifron and VortiX still moving up. Up north, you still have a lot of towers though, so they are taking down many of those combat ships. They're also damaging the demolition ships, so it's a little more difficult to keep them alive. Looks like the Spearmen, the Fire Lancers, and the Elephants will be able to clean up Sorakuma's cavalry here. Sorakuma assembling push on the left side, though there is a Baoshuan out there. The Baoshuan is able to survive because there is going to be some demolition ships from Sorakuma trading off against the demos of the opponents. This is what you want to accomplish. Have a demolition ship that just kills 5 or more. That Baoshuan from the Mongols is slowly crawling up. Majestic ship moving all the way north to the river. And you see the cannon fire is able to take down many of those demolition ships. Demos will be popped and triggered. There is still some more coming in. Some spearmen from Siamjig though burning down docks. Stonewall Tower is also coming in. Now the demolition ships get close to the Baoshuan though, and that's gonna be one sunk warship over there. Meanwhile, they build a Wonder? Nope. No one built a Wonder just yet at this point, but there is Wars coming in there, so I wonder if that's gonna be the plan. Because Mista's team seems like they are walling off a section at the back of their base, but there's just so many things happening at the same time that it is difficult to keep track of everything that's going on. Demolition ships constantly trading off against each other. At this point, Stonewalls still up here for Demon Sheep though, and as I said, there is a section of Stonewalls here which could signal a Wonder. On the other side, there is a Mongol player, and one thing we haven't talked about is that Mongols don't need to spend stone on a Wonder. Now, here's the deal. Sacred Site victory was triggered once again by Demon Sheep's team, so a Wonder won't do any good for LucifroN's team, because the Sacred Site countdown is 10 minutes and the Wonder is 15. But if they can neutralize the Sacred Site, a Wonder is still within reach. Karak and Baoshuan now setting up here. That's gonna be a lot of cannon fire. They can take down those demos before they get close, or can they? They are just sinking all those warships. More walls coming up from Mista. He knows exactly that. These walls can be blasted through very easily with the demolition ships. In the middle, Fire Lancers still coming in to try and neutralize that Sacred Site as Men-at-Arms flood in here. Fire Lancers getting some nice charges in. That Sacred Site victory is getting closer and closer, so suddenly there's a sense of urgency here for LucifroN's team. Because if those Sacred Sites are walled up, LucifroN's team won't be able to get to them. And you see, it hasn't been neutralized. Right now the countdown isn't going on because there is a contested Sacred Site. But if these walls go up, it's going to be difficult to neutralize all of those. On the river, there is just no visible progress being made. There's also a transport ship from Sorakuma. It's going to be very short-lived, I believe. And now the Fire Lancers are cleaned up. Stone Walls are coming up. So a Wonder is going to be doing no good for the team of the Mista right now, because they need to neutralize one of those Sacred Sites. Unfortunately, in this game, as Sorakuma is making a Wonder as well. Sorakuma is making the Wonder. There goes the Great Palace of Flensburg. And suddenly, they have the Sacred Site countdown going for them. They have the Wonder countdown going for them. Mista's team has to make a move here, because otherwise they're going to lose the game on one victory condition or the other. Demolition ships still trading off against each other, but this is about the lack of map control. The fact that VortiX's team isn't able to push up here because there's just a big force of Men-at-Arms, then the Stonewall fortifications really slow them down. Demon Sheep did an exceptional job with that. Now you got some Elite Lancers and some Spearmen in as well from Siamjig. Slowly but surely, VortiX is pushing though, and they're getting closer to those stone walls. The first step, of course, is to take down one of these Sacred Sites. And then you have to go for a Wonder. The Wonder is still 40 minutes away, and you see Sorakuma isn't messing around. He's going to play with like multiple layers of stone walls. Baoshuan out now for LucifroN as well. There is a Baoshuan as well from Siamjig, and Sorakuma coming in with a demo ship as well. Demolition ships will once again exchange fire. Some Lancers for Sorakuma. I wonder if there's a transport ship coming in from him, because we saw some transports before and these knights are sort of camping there as if they were waiting for some transports to come through. Men-at-Arms trading off in the middle. Those Men-at-Arms from VortiX are way better because Demon Sheep went with the compound of the Defender. So he doesn't have own blades right now. Fire Lancers are coming in, and there's a Wonder as well for Mista's team. So suddenly, this turns into a Wonder race. Obviously, for Mista's team, the first thing to do is to get through these walls and neutralize the Sacred Site, but they're very close to that. And when you send in those Fire Lancers, the Sacred Site will be neutralized, so it's gonna come down to Wonder timings, and that is just a gigantic force of Elephants and Fire Lancers coming through here. Wonders, there is a 2 minutes difference in here. If Mista's team destroys the opponent's Wonder, I think it's game over, because their opponents won't be able to counterattack in time, and their armies look really powerful now. We're talking about 50 plus Fire Lancers. There's 53 population on military for LucifroN. For Mista, he's got 65 military population, quite a lot of Elephants on the battlefield, and the Men-at-Arms numbers are also very good for VortiX. In particular, that's the most spectacular army on the field. 65 elite Men-at-Arms on the field. They don't have 200 weapons though, which is a bit of a mistake. Now the bug of two-handed weapons has been fixed, so you can actually have two-handed weapons and maces together. Not sure if VortiX knows that. However, there's one problem here for VortiX's team. The demolition ships of Sorakuma are crawling closer and closer to that shallows, and suddenly, if you have the demolition ships controlling this crossing, there's going to be no way to reinforce the battlefield. Demon Sheep getting some barracks up over here to slow down this push as much as possible. Up north, some Lancers are still in here for Samjik, but here comes the big push from VortiX's team. Wonders sitting at 1150 and 1325. Left side, we have minimal forces in here. Demolition ship pops out as well. For Sorakuma, he's just trying to limit Lucifron's chances of moving out here, and he's doing a pretty decent job at that. Just look at the amount of demolition ships that are out here. Ridiculous. Oh boy, like, the amount of firepower that you have over here and the amount of explosions is just crazy. Developers looking at this game, they definitely need to rethink how demolition ships work, that's for sure. Man-at-Arms now joining into the party in the middle, but against heavy cavalry like the Lancers and the heavy infantry, the Men-at-Arms, these Men-at-Arms will perform quite well. They do have +6 versus heavy, and of course 7 melee armor as well. Fire Lancers looping around, and in the shadows you can't see them until they pop out. This could be the perfect charge by Lucifron. What an absolute beauty of a move. In those stealth forests, the opponents didn't see the Fire Lancers coming from behind, and now the Fire Lancers just jump on the army of KAIO on the left. It's gonna come down to this push, I believe, because KAIO has a 2 minutes lead with the Wonder. You gotta break through these fortifications, but good luck doing that, Demon Sheep says. He's going to build 3 layers of stone walls, dozens of men-at-arms holding this crossing, and what's more important is that we have tons of demolition ships there as well. The left side of the map is gonna get less and less impactful at this point as we focus our attention towards the big fight happening over here. The flood of men-at-arms is just never ending right now from VortiX. He's gonna need some forward barracks to reinforce the battle a little faster. Crossbows upgrade Indo for Mista's elephants, and that is just one of the most important upgrades to grab with the Delhi if you are using elephants, because that's going to give you a ton of extra damage against heavy units like the Men-at-Arms, the Lancers. Castles coming up, and I think the plan is to make some docks here. If you make some docks for Mista, you could potentially get some demo ships out yourself and even things out. Those were built by Mista. The Vos that were built by Mista, though, were taken by Demon Sheep, and now he's standing on top of those Vos, burning down the towers of the blue player. Castles will start taking down those demolition ships in that crossing. Barracks slowly being ground down as well, as we have some bombards crawling up from Lucifron. Sacred Sites still under the control of Demon Sheep's team, by the way, and I think that started before that 9 minutes mark, so you gotta be careful here if you're VortiX's team. We once again don't have a Sacred Site tracker, but you will see the notification on the right side about the Sacred Sites. Shouldn't really be a big deal though, as you should be able to take this Sacred Site if you're VortiX's team. Transport ships are being assembled on the right side for Samjik. He wants to make a landing happen at this point. In the middle, Manganos holding this choke point, getting some beautiful shots on the Fire Lancers, and the Men-at-Arms Lancers now moving in as well. For Samjik, Sacred Sites, for Demon Sheep's team, still under their control, and you see those Baoshan are slowly crawling up, so soon the flux of reinforcements could actually just be cut off. In fact, they're getting dangerously close to that crossing. KAIO holding this crossing as we speak, 8.5 minutes remaining from this game before KAIO wins with a Wonder victory. And up north, as I said, there are some transport ships. If you can get some villagers out here, you could build a forward base and just delay the push of Mista's team right now. And that's exactly what the plan is. In the middle, no noticeable progress has been made by the forces of Mista, although he's managed to get 3 keeps up. But now you have a Baoshan up, trying to shell that castle. And you finally see the demolition ships coming in for Sorakuma. This was the danger. Now you don't have enough water control for VortiX's team, and all the reinforcements are coming through here, and that could be a disaster. Having a couple of demolition ships here sinking the reinforcements is not something that VortiX's team will survive. They need to make a good push happen, and if the reinforcements are cut off, there is no chance for that. These walls are still alive, and the Sacred Site victory is still going on right now. For KAIO there's going to be one Baoshan taken down by the castle. A second one is going to be working as well. But Mista is coming in with a landing too. The landing with the elephants! The landing with the elephants for Mista. 500 IQ gameplay or disaster. If he loses all these elephants, reinforcing the battle is gonna be very difficult, but guess what? In Age of Empires, you can fit 16 elephants into a transport, and Mista is marching towards those walls with the elephants, and unlike any other cavalry units, the elephants can actually bash their way through their walls. And with that, it seems pretty difficult for that infantry to stop this, because the Tower Wall elephants have a ton of damage output. The first layer of walls are going down. This would be a crucial victory here for Mista's team. The reinforcements could be cut off by demos any moment now. They can't really break through the middle, so it's all in the hands of Mista to make this happen. Mangonels are being pulled to take down those elephants, but this is where you have to mention that the Great Palace of Flensburg doesn't have a ton of HP, and that is still 12 elephants marching closer and closer to the Wonder. There is still 6 minutes left on that Wonder timer. Mista knocking the first volleys out with those elephants, the second, the third, and with that, the Wonder goes down from Kaio all fallen. On the other side, there is a landing coming in by Siamjik, but now it is in their hands to destroy that Wonder, the Great Palace of Agra, and they have 7 minutes to do that. Oh boy, just so many things happening all across the map. Demolition ships from VortiX are now crawling up, but now with the Wonder gone for the team of Sorakuma, this is going to be very difficult. The elephants actually gave their life for that. They got slaughtered by the spearmen, the mangonel fire, but they served their purpose. The elephant D-Day by Mista works out. Those elephants had to walk all the way from this landing point here, and you see Demon Sheep is already stonewalling his side. He knows exactly that, oh shoot, that's a possibility. Baoshua now out here though, controlling the river, and slowly but surely Siamjik could secure a forward position for himself, but one thing that he doesn't have is elephants. In the middle, you have Demon Sheep forces now pushing up with a lot of men-at-arms, though the castle does have the boiling oil on them, so many of those men-at-arms will fall. But now you see an increased momentum for Kaio Fallen coming through in the middle. There's also the worst ever gold mining operation I've seen from Siamjik. This is the worst ever gold mining operation out there. Just look at that. Oh, he's walking across the map. Fire Lancers are now being sent in on the right side. Stables should be burned down really fast. If there are a couple of demolition ships, they could sink all those Fire Lancers, but that is not something that you're going to see anytime in the future. And now the Mista is coming in with some layers of palisade walls. They just want to prevent landings at this point. Mista at 5:40 remaining on time. In the middle, men-at-arms are crawling up though, and VortiX forced to pull all his villagers back. Men-at-arms still working towards the north. They're trying to get through here, and honestly, if they get through, they could still get to that Wonder in time. There is 5 minutes 20 seconds left over here. Transport ships getting ready, and one thing you can do with those men-at-arms when you land is make stone wall fortifications, so you can just crawl forward over here. In the middle, fights are no longer that intense. I think at this point, VortiX's team is just waiting for the big landing over here. We have 61 Fire Lancers ready for that push. Also, 50 villagers from VortiX sent out all to the berries. They will be slaughtered by the men-at-arms, but at least VortiX can replace them with military population, and that could help holding that Wonder a little longer. It's gonna be just an absolute slaughter over here. All those villagers go down. Down south, we still have demolition ships trading off against each other. Walls being built by Demon Sheep. And up north, it's still a slaughter. But as I said, for VortiX, actually, VortiX is losing a lot. VortiX is losing a lot of stuff over here, and his population isn't looking great. Knights now landing for Sorakuma. They managed to get a foothold for themselves, but they're very far from pushing into this position. And you see, walls are being rushed up by Lucifron. And what is that? Why is that wall deleted? Not exactly sure what Mista did over there, but at this point, VortiX's team is all about fortifying that position on that left-hand side. Transports, once again, dropping off some reinforcements, but you just don't have enough meat here, I think, for Sorakuma to break through this one. The towers are still being placed here all the way up front by Demon Sheep, trying to cut off the influx of demolition ships. Down south, demolition ships will keep trading against each other, but it all comes down to that wonder now. How do you get there in 3.5 minutes? Battering rams, oh boy. I feel like that's going to be a very, very sad ending for Demon Sheep's forces here. Battering rams take quite a lot of time here to build. Elephants are out on the battlefield, but is this force sufficient to deal with what would likely be like at least 100 Fire Lancers? Also, about 10 Tower Elephants. You can see that VortiX's team is just going for a wonder defense here anymore. 50 men-at-arms, about 100 Fire Lancers, 10 plus elephants over here, and a bunch of buildings in front as well. This looks like a campaign mission. Mista's lining up his spearmen in defense of his palace. I don't think this is happening here for Kaio Fallen. Two and a half minutes remaining on the Wonder countdown. It's now or never for Demon Sheep's team. They can't wait any longer because it's going to take quite a lot of time to get all the way up here. And you see, Mista's forces are moving to the south. There is one hope though. You don't have to destroy the Wonder if you defeat the player that owns the Wonder. And that's something that Mista has to be careful about. He can't lose all his landmarks, because if he does, then suddenly it could be game over. The Fire Lancers make a big charge over here into the Knights. Elephants crawling up over here, but these barely do anything here, and it really just feels desperation from Kaio Fallen. Because as things stand, all of those elephants are getting massacred. A couple of knights make it through, but good luck getting to that Wonder, because that is just not happening here. Kaio Fallen had the Wonder up faster, but then the elephant landing here from Mista just takes down the Wonder, and suddenly it is Los Pollos Hermanos with the Wonder victory coming in. And indeed, Sorakuma, Siamjik, and Demon Sheep tap out 2-0 in the favor of Los Pollos Hermanos. What a crazy game once again. Dozens of demolition ships going on, but really the highlight of the game, of course, was that elephant landing from Mista. The question was, how can they push the opponent's crossing over there? And Mista had a clever idea. You can fit a bunch of elephants into a transport ship and just march up, take down the walls. Not something that the opponents were able to do. Look at the swings in the villager graphs. This is how intense this game was. Military counts also having massive swings out there. Looking at the economy real quickly, Sorakuma getting 61,000 gold. Bit of a highlight in that department. By far the best in the game, because he had 4 relics working for him, with the Holy Roman Empire, of course, and the Regnitz Cathedral. Mista 31,000, 25 only for Demon Sheep though. He managed to get exactly 9,000 gold, 60,000 food though in his hands. Hades, Mista with 356 versus 246, of course. He was using very expensive units, the elephants, so he's not going to have that many losses. Everyone else, massive casualties. Part of the reason why you're seeing many negative KDs is because demolition ships actually do that. So with that, Sorakuma, Siamjik, and Demon Sheep fall behind by 2 games. Big win here for Los Pollos Hermanos, because this was a close game, and this was a game that was much needed for Kaio Fallen to win. And they weren't able to close this out. The elephant landing finished off the Wonder, and with that, Mista's team moves into a match point position. With that, 2-0 for Los Pollos Hermanos. We'll take a short break over here before game number 3, because the players are getting ready for that as well. So grab yourself some snacks. Match point for Los Pollos Hermanos. One more win and they are in the grand finals of AoE4 Pro League. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back, everybody, to AoE4 Pro League. We do have game number 3 coming up, and we're going to Lipany, so open maps once again, and we will have French, Mongols, Rus for VortiX's team, whereas on the other side, Samjik, Demon Sheep, and Sorakuma will be using the French, Rus, and the Abbasids once again. One of the drawbacks of using the Mongols in the previous game was that they don't have it available for game number 3. In game number 3, you can pick any civilization that you used, you can pick any civilization that you did not use in game number 2, so you can repick the ones from game number 1 as well, and that's exactly what both teams are doing as we speak. And with that, we will have just a couple of seconds to wait before we jump into game number 3. Match point for Los Pollos Hermanos, one more win and they are in the grand finals. It is going to be LucifroN handling the French, Mista with the Mongols, and VortiX with the Rus, whereas on the other side, Samjik's team looking to make a recovery with Samjik handling the Rus, Demon Sheep using the French, and Sorakuma once again going for the Abbasid dynasty. Let's see if the Abbasid dynasty works out better than it did in game number 1, because in game number 1, it was a bit of a disaster. It started out good, but after that, everything just fell apart, and in the end, Abbasids fell to the Mongols. With that, we're jumping into game number 3. On the left side of the map, on Lipany, we will have VortiX in the pocket playing as the Rus. The flank is going to be Mongols for the Mista in red, and up north you're going to have LucifroN playing as the French in yellow. To the right side, Samjik is going to be playing as the Rus in the flank in teal. The pocket is going to be Demon Sheep with the green French, and the other flank is going to be Sorakuma playing as the Abbasid dynasty in purple. Looking at the map real quickly, you see that both teams have their pockets sort of shielded by some cliffs in front of their base. Relic distribution, looking rather even. You have 3 relics on the side of LucifroN's team on the cliffs. You do have 3 on the side of Demon Sheep's team, and the other 3 are sort of in neutral ground down south, so fairly even distribution of relics over here, as we will have the 2 Rus players racing for that bounty, or the 80 bounty at this point for VortiX, whereas on the other side, for the other Rus player, it is going to be Samjik with 85 bounty. Looks like VortiX is going to start off with the patches of deer. He's not really looking for wolves as we speak. And looking at the Mongol player, the Mista, he's once again opening with a pasture. So Mista, once again, not putting up a ton of aggression in Dark Age. He's probably going to play something very similar than what he did in the previous game. Go for Horseman, maybe a couple of Manga Die, and just go for that Feudal Age pressure. He doesn't want to do that much damage in Dark Age. He believes in that few Horsemen, use the mobility in Feudal Age style gameplay, and then get to an early Castle Age time and get some Lancers going. Up north, LucifroN bringing in the town center with the very exposed gold mine, and this is probably the biggest source of concern right now for LucifroN. He's playing in the flank, and his gold mine is more than exposed, which means that early aggression could actually cause serious problems for him. Luckily, he's up against the Rus player, so this Rus player isn't going to put up that much pressure on this gold mine, so the only person that he has to be afraid of is going to be the opponent's pocket, which is Demon Sheep. School of Cavalry now moving in for Demon Sheep. On the other side of the map, we have Samjik finding a wolf. He's currently at 255 bounty, which will get him pushed up to 270. And on the other side, if we look at VortiX, he's at 325, so he's a little bit ahead when it comes to the bounty collection. Turns out, you're going to have a very exposed gold mine. For the Mista, quite a bit exposed, and that could cause problems, especially if the Abbasid player wants to go super crazy on the aggression. Looks like it's going to be an economy wing, age up by Sorakuma. Up north, School of Cavalry, as you would expect from Demon Sheep, and it is going to be Siamjik playing as the Rus, going for the Golden Gate, no surprise in that department. So, the two Rus players currently fighting for those Huntables. Quite a bit of an advantage now for VortiX though. That is going to be 410 bounty already for him and 290 for Siamjik. As things stand, we have minimal aggression going on from the Mongol player as was discussed, so it's all going to come down to Feudal Age. And the first question is if we're going to see Sorakuma getting some Camel Archers out like he did in the first game. He went for Camel Archers so he can have some mobility, he can harass the French player's gold income. We'll have to see if that is the game plan once again. Scouts moving up for Siamjik already. He wants to take some Huntables from the side of LucifroN here. These Huntables being quite exposed out there. And on the other side, Sorakuma is going to get his scout killed by the town center of VortiX, so he's going to be playing blind a tiny bit over here, because he's not going to have his scout nearby. VortiX already getting to 550 bounty. That's a bit of a problem for Siamjik, because at this point Siamjik is stuck at like 290. He's already ferrying in deer, or he will be doing that in a matter of moments, but the fact that VortiX is still able to get some deer down means that VortiX is already at the 500 level, giving him 50% food getter rate bonus, whereas on the other side, it's only 295 for Siamjik, so he's only at level 2 bounty as opposed to the opponent being level 3. Looks like we're going to have double archer ranges opening once again by Sorakuma, opening with the Camel Archers, just like he did in game number 1. And on the right side, LucifroN is actually making a Horseman this time around. He has a mill up and he's grabbing professional scouts. So just like in game number 1, with the French, he's opening pro scouts. Whereas on the other side, Demon Sheep in game number 1 didn't go professional scouts. And in this game, he is not going to play with pro scouts either. So there is going to be knights coming in. That will mean that the knight advantage will be on the side of Demon Sheep. And as you see, this will result in LucifroN being pushed back into his tower. We have seen something very similar in game number 1. Having Demon Sheep not go for professional scouts means that he's gonna have a knight numbers advantage at the beginning, and he already has a second stable going for him. For the Mista, he's just now reaching Feudal Age, no production building just yet for him. It's likely going to be a stable when he gets up to Feudal. As things stand, as I said, it's only 300 bounty for the Rus player Siamjik, so that's not spectacular compared to what VortiX has to work with. But Siamjik already bringing in the first batch of Huntables from in front of LucifroN's base. And given the fact that LucifroN want to play with professional scouts, this is going to limit the amount of Huntables LucifroN can take at the beginning, so not necessarily ideal for a yellow player. Meanwhile, still no pressure by the Mista, and I'm starting to believe that he wants to go for a fast castle. Indeed, that is the case. Look at that. Mista is already going up to Castle Age. At 7 minutes, he's actually going to beat the Rus player into Castle. That's a spectacular build order by the Mista. We have seen him doing that in some sets before, but I've never really analyzed this build. This is just a crazy fast castle here, step right out, already being built by the Mista. And you see, 7 minutes 10 seconds, as opposed to the Rus player, who is just now dropping that landmark. And with that, you would have 2 players in Castle Age for Mista's team, whereas on the other side, you will have a Castle Age player, the Rus, for Demon Sheep's team. But what about the Abbasid Dynasty player? He's just making archers right now, and Lancers plus Horse Archers combined could easily knock out 1 player from this game. This is a lethal combination right now for LucifroN's team. Separate out already on the way for the Mista. Up north we have some knights charging into each other, but no major damage was inflicted. In fact, in general, we only have 1 kill in this entire game, and that was Sorakuma's scout being killed by the town center of VortiX. Knights from Demon Sheep heading all the way down south here. The target is VortiX, and that's clear. He could lose a couple of villagers over here, as he was just now making the archer range. Villagers making a run for a tower, though, and it looks like no villagers will be killed once again. Castle Age is in for VortiX. Siamjik was also slower going up to Castle Age because he didn't have that much bounty. This is looking really grim for KO4, because as things stand, Mista is almost up to Castle Age. He's gonna grab Lancers soon. He didn't spend a single bit of his stone, so Mista can go double Lancers really fast. And simultaneously, VortiX is already up to Castle Age as well. He's gonna get raided a tiny bit here, which is going to delay his play towards the Horse Archers. But ultimately, once the forces of Lucifron come in here to relieve the pressure, he should be able to get those archer ranges out, and he's already popping out warrior monks to collect relics, whereas on the other side, Siamjik is gonna be quite a bit behind compared to VortiX in Castle Age timing. Meanwhile, Castle Age is in for Mista, and here come the knights. The first couple will be sent forward to help out VortiX. I like that idea here, because you want to make sure that VortiX is also able to go for the Horse Archers. You could send your knights forward if you were Mista, and do a lot of damage with them on the opponent, but it's probably safer to just clean up this aggression in VortiX's base, and then combine the Horse Archers with your knights. On the right side, knights are still harassing the base of Lucifron, but at this point, all Lucifron needs to do is just make sure he doesn't die to Demon Sheep's knights over here. The Khan has been aggressive and he's been harassing the gold miners of Sorakuma, so Mista was able to force a tower with that Khan. We also see some scouts from Siamjik ferrying in deer for his teammate Demon Sheep. Demon Sheep not up to Castle Age yet, but Siamjik is. Siamjik aged up with the High Trade House and he's going for a monastery for the warrior monks. Knights now converging upon the base of Mista, but Mista's gonna be more than happy to fight this over here. He's gonna have the Lancer's advantage by a massive margin. He's gonna have to move that Gur because right now he's dropping off the gold over there instead of the Step Redoubt, but that's just a small little thing here. And notice how aggressive Mista is with that Khan. Khan in Castle Age actually does quite a lot of damage, so you can pick off villagers every once in a while. He has forced the tower on the gold mine of Sorakuma, and now he's harassing the gold miners of Demon Sheep. Just one Khan, but it's doing so much work out there. And now we got some Horse Archers moving in from Siamjik. Supported by the Knights of Demon Sheep, these will force the Lucifron back. But on the other side, you're already seeing Horse Archers coming in for VortiX too. As long as these Camel Archers are in here, those Horse Archers will have a hard time reaching the battlefield. But part of the reason why Mista is pulling back his cavalry is because he wants to fight this head-on over here. Lancers are not more powerful than the Knights. Lancers and Knights are the exact same. This is basically just a reskin, although these are Feudal Age Royal Knights versus these are Castle Age units. So these are currently better than the opponent's Knights simply because they are Castle Age units as opposed to Feudal Age units. But in terms of base stats, they're actually the same unit. Camel Archers will take a good fight over here against the Horse Archers. As you see, Camel Archers meant to be able to counter the Horse Archers, and they do that quite nicely. Slowly but surely, however, Mista is building up his knight numbers, and I think that's starting to get very, very scary. As we speak, it is already at like 10, 15, and those are Castle Age units. Castle Age is in for Sorakuma as well, though, so we could see some crossbowmen hit the field. He still isn't really a factor so far, though. He only has a couple of Camel Archers here. Most of his units were infantry, and those are staying back home. Khan from Mista still doing work here. The value in that Khan is just immense. He has killed like 2 or 3 villagers with that Khan already, and he's just showing no signs of slowing down. Meanwhile, Horse Archers are now moving in. Mista has to be careful when it comes to taking this fight, but with the help of VortiX's Horse Archers, he's gonna be able to do that. Horse Archers moving in now from Siamjik to even things out. We'll take a look at the relic situation very soon, as we do have only 1 relic for Siamjik. VortiX is sitting on 2, and there's a third one right next to his monastery, so at this point, VortiX has the relic numbers advantage. Lucifron and Demon Sheep, the 2 French players, are the only players not in Castle Age, and now you see Mista's knight numbers increasing quite rapidly with that double training, and that's going to show on the battlefield because he's going to have some forces helping out on the left side, but some will also be dispatched to raid, and if they can get a nice raid in on the gold miners or the villagers on foot for Demon Sheep, that could be a disaster for the pocket player over here. Up north, Camel Archers are increasing in numbers though, so you gotta be careful with that because they can snipe down those Horse Archers very nicely. Knights on the other side, trying to intercept that warrior monk here from Siamjik, but instead they just turn around and they're looking to sandwich the army of Kaio Fallen in between them. Nice reaction from Kaio Fallen, heading all the way up north here, still regrouping with their forces. The archers from Sorakuma are not in here, so he only has the Camel Archers on the battlefield, whereas the opponents combined all of their forces here to make this push. Horse Archers coming back, 3 relics now for Siamjik. Wonder if he's going to pop out one of those to try and get a conversion. Warrior Monk will get taken down, as it looks like Demon Sheep's team is gonna get pushed here. Knights are charging in from Lucifron. Most of those are still Feudal Age Knights, so They will get picked off by the Horse Archers very fast. LucifroN just now reaching Castle Age, but of course he needs time to get his upgrades in. Camel Archer is doing a beautiful job holding this though, and honestly, this is a quite underwhelming fight for the team of VortiX. Many of the knights here will fall for them. The good news is that Demon Sheep also lost considerable numbers, and as I said, LucifroN is up to Castle Age, so he's gonna have veteran Royal Knights coming into the battlefield very soon. Meanwhile, down south, some Lancers are moving in from Mista, and you see, these archers are just so obsolete right now for Sorakuma. This is the biggest problem. Sorakuma has a bunch of units that are just unusable right now for him. They aren't really doing much, staying back at home, and they don't even do that well against those knights that are raiding him, so having to invest into those archers in Feudal Age just to make sure he doesn't get overrun by Feudal Age units is definitely one of the weaknesses of the Abbasids over here. Guildhall is the building of choice though for LucifroN, and on the other side, it is going to be the Royal Institute. So there is going to be that HP power spike for the French player in green to potentially win a fight. Because LucifroN is not going to have the Royal Bloodlines upgrade until Imperial Age, whereas his opponent is going to have that. So that's the power spike that you want to utilize if you're Demon Sheep. Lancers from Mista now heading all to the base of Sorakuma. We're even seeing some knights from LucifroN coming in here, so Sorakuma could get double teamed easily. He needs a couple of crossbowmen here, because without crossbows, he won't be able to hold off those Lancers. Looks like Lancers will go back home, though, so looks like Mista wasn't very decisive with his moves over there. Knights moving up from Mista to the middle of the map, as it looks like we're going to have a big clash of armies. Before we really get into that, let's take a look at the relic situation for Siamjik, which is pretty good given the fact that he only has a monastery and he had to invest more into those warrior monks. It's double the cost, as you would have to pay for the warrior monks on your abbey, and it's only free for VortiX. So Siamjik actually is doing a beautiful job collecting relics. We'll see if that's going to be enough to win a game for them though, as the knights will jump on those camel archers. And those camel archers are very expensive, take a lot of time to train, so losing them would be an absolute disaster. Demon Sheep, still no HP upgrade just yet for him, but he's grabbing Candle Settles first. Royal Bloodlines is what he needs to go for. However, look at the eco of Mista. Mista is about to go into Imperial Age, he's getting some raids going. This game so far has Mista written all over it because he's been everywhere with those Lancers, and he's going up to Imperial Age. And on the left side, this will force all of the players from AoE4 to fall back, and look at this 1-2 punch. Mista forces all the Horse Archers to help out the pocket player, and in that very same moment, VortiX moves in with the Horse Archers. The amount of dead villagers here couldn't even be counted, and the moment the Horse Archers go back, the Lancers once again come in to fight. And as I said, Mista is doing this in Castle Age and he's on the way to Imperial. He's just doing an exceptional job right now. And now, AoE4 is playing from a very disadvantageous position. Their eco is just not there. No Royal Bloodlines on those knights just yet. And if Mista gets to Imperial, he's gonna have access to the elite Lancers on the battlefield. You already see Lancers roaming the base of Sorakuma. He's exposed quite heavily to that aggression. Looks like the Horse Archers will retreat for VortiX. They know exactly they're outnumbered, especially with those Camel Archers being on the field. But LucifroN is regrouping his knights, and they will take one decisive fight here in the middle, I believe. Given the fact that Mista is in Imperial Age, you could just let him do his job on the right side and trade off armies on the north. That's probably the best thing that you can do. Lancers moving in now, and as I said, these archers will just have a minimal impact on this battle. So many villagers go down from Sorakuma. And Mista, being in Imperial Age, he actually went up with the Kaganet Palace, which is going to spawn him an army as well. He didn't even go up with the White Stupa, which is the landmark that you mostly see for the Mongols. Instead, it is going to be an army of horsemen, Mangara, and Lancers every 90 seconds with the Kaganet Palace. Free army is never something that you're going to be disappointed about. On the right side, Demon Sheep's got some knights coming in to try and relieve the pressure on his teammate's base. But Mista is already one step ahead, I think, because he's going to have the elite upgrades come in. Also, we're seeing the elite veteran Mangudai upgrade come in, probably even elite whenever there is an opportunity for that. So Mista's going to play the ultimate Mongol composition. Lancers and Mangadai. That is extremely hard to stop. Lancers, Mangadai beat Horse Archers even. Although the numbers are much better for Samjik right now, technology advantage will be on the side of Mista, so I think Lancer Mangadai here from Mista could single-handedly beat this army. Knights now counterattacking here from Demon Sheep. He still doesn't have the HP upgrade. He's just now grabbing that. But by the time it comes in, his opponent is going to have Imperial Age Elite Lancers. And you see Mangadai already on the battlefield. And once they get their Castle Age unique technology, they will do a ton of damage as well, even against heavily armored units. So this force from Mista seems unstoppable right now, unless you have massive numbers advantage. But the moment you get numbers advantage, you will have to pull away forces from the north. Looks like we'll have the big clash coming in soon. HP upgrade is not in for Demon Sheep, and once again, VortiX and LucifroN won't risk anything. They will just call their forces off. They know exactly that as long as these forces are up here, it's free players. With the Horse Archers, the Camel Archers, and the Knights, as long as those forces are up there, Mista can just do his own thing down south and finish off Sorakuma. That was the game plan for so long for this team. Mista just doing his own thing, and he's doing it really well. And then just having VortiX and LucifroN finish the game off. At this point, VortiX and LucifroN are the ones distracting everyone's army, and Mista is just going to do his own thing, and ultimately appear with like 50 Elite Lancers and Mangadai in the base of Sorakuma. Now, this is a scary counterattack over here, and now those Knights have the HP advantage over the yellow ones, so you still gotta be careful if you're VortiX's team, because it looks like we could see Samjik's team forcing an engagement here. It's a little scary, especially with the forces of LucifroN and VortiX splitting up here. Now you got some forces coming in, trying to raid the base of LucifroN. Where's LucifroN's eco at, by the way? Where is LucifroN's eco at? He's got 62 villagers somewhere, but you just don't see any inside his base. They're all the way up north, all the way down south here, so Demon Sheep's team came in to raid, but there is absolutely nothing here to raid at this point. And it looks like Mista, he knows exactly that he needs to help his teammate. Instead of pushing Sorakuma down south, he's going to send in the Veteran Mangadai Elite Lancer combination right now. No biology for him just yet. Just look at the horde. Knights, Camel Archers, Horse Archers here. They'll be meeting similar amount of Horse Archers. Some Yellow Knights with lower HP than the green ones. But of course, some Imperial Age army here from Mista. And that's going to be probably the most important factor here. Saint's Blessing also playing a role here for VortiX's forces. You see those Horse Archers glowing in orange. And now the Knights are just smashing all those Horse Archers in the face. And it is really Mista's Lancers that are absorbing the arrow fire over here. Yellow Knights from LucifroN also having much better numbers than the ones from Demon Sheep. And Samjik's forces are getting repelled as well. Camel Archers still doing some work over here, but the Camel Archers can't focus the Horse Archers, so they're not as effective as they could possibly be, and the numbers are just too massive here. VortiX, Mista, and LucifroN could march into the Grand Finals with a 3-0 victory as well. And indeed, you see those Camel Archers turn grey, Kaio of Fallen resigns, and with that, VortiX, LucifroN, and the Mista make it to the Grand Finals. Absolutely amazing show of force here. They have been just juggernauts here, as Kaio of Fallen did have good moments, but ultimately Mista, VortiX, and LucifroN show why they're all elite players in 1v1 as well. And when you combine their forces, add some team chemistry like they have, they are going to be able to win tournaments with that potentially. They'll be in the Grand Finals, 3-0 victory for them. This was by far the most decisive game. Mista had an insane build order. This is something that a lot of people will probably analyze for a long time. Having a faster Castle Age than the Rus player here, a Rus player that had 500 bounty, is just spectacular. And then his Imperial Age timing was also great. He never made a ton of army, but this Imperial Age timing is sick. If you look at Holy Roman Empire fast Imperials, those finish at like the 12-13 minute mark. He had a 17-minute Imperial Age with the Mongols, while he was making some Lancers as well in the process. That is just a spectacular show of force here from the Mista. Ultimately, LucifroN, 9,000 gold gathered, Mista 9,000 as well. Just massively outclassing their opponents when it comes to resource income. Villager counts, 74 for Mista, the maximum, and no one else above 70. LucifroN at 69, very nice. Demon Sheep, the other French player, only 62 villagers. Samjik and Sorakuma both stuck at 56 and 57. And we never know how this game would have went, or how game number 1 would have went, if Kaio of Fallen also had Mongols picked there. They decided to go for the Mongols on the second map, but that didn't really play out that well. The Mongols weren't able to decide the game in their favor, and ultimately their late game potential was just lacking for a slower paced map like Danube River. And then it also meant that they would have to use Abbasid Dynasty in game number 3 here. And Mista's handling of Mongols here was just spectacular. And part of the reason why VortiX's team is so successful is because Mista is just playing out of his mind with the Mongols. And of course, VortiX and Lucifron playing an exceptional job as well with Horse Archers and the Knights. Los Pollos Hermanos. If you look at the roster of teams before the tournament, you probably would have said that this team is really powerful and they are going to get into the grand finals. If you said that before the event, you were right, because indeed, Los Pollos Hermanos moves into the grand finals.